go see Grandpa Fuji today. Grandpa Fuji, I've always wondered, how many megapixels do you have?
Ho ho ho! I don't use megapixels, I use film.
Wow, I didn't know you were that old. I always wondered how film worked. Can you tell me about it, Grandpa Fuji?
Of course, little Fuge. All it really is some chemicals on a piece of plastic that, when exposed to light,
Hey,
will
honey,
go...
did you
Huh?
remember you needed to get your light seals checked today?
All right, I'll go. I see we're here to get our light seals checked. Shall we? I guess. Is it gonna hurt? You might feel a little pressure. No, I wasn't ready. Ah! Oof! Ah! These are gonna need to be replaced. Film photography. For centuries, it's been the only way for us to be able to capture an image and share it with others, whether that be still images or moving images. And while looking back today, it seems inevitable that digital was going to take over, when you look at the history of film photography, it really doesn't seem that clear-cut. But the past is the past, and digital photography is here and here to stay. But that being said, it seems like film photography is having a bit of a resurgence. Hey, it's John from Adults Have Toys Too. So I'm starting a short series on film photography, and we're going to be taking a look at this camera, the Fujica ST801 made by Fujifilm. This is a completely manual and completely mechanical camera that can function without any batteries, without any power, other than the light meter. And you can go ahead and use an external light meter if you'd like. But before we get started shooting photos, we need to make sure that the camera's in good working order. The Fujica ST801 was built in the early to mid-70s, so it's older than I am. First things first, everything seems to work. The shutter seems to work, the rewind seems to work, but we need to look inside. So we're going to go ahead and open up the film back, and oof, these light seals look completely shot. Next, let's get this lens off and see what we're working with in the front. This is an M42 screw-type mount, so you actually unscrew it like a light bulb. And inside here we can see, ouch, the mirror bumper, which is also a light seal, is completely gone. If we don't replace that piece, which is also completely worn away, then when you take a photo, the light from the eyepiece will actually leak in and expose your film. And at the end of the day, all a camera really is a light-proof box that controls the amount of light shining onto the film. In fact, the word camera comes from camera obscura, which just means dark chamber, where people found that if you were in a dark room with a small hole at one end, an inverted image of the exterior would be projected inside. Some painters actually use this technique to get accurate lighting and more detailed paintings. Replacing light seals is a pretty normal film camera maintenance procedure, but if you've only been using digital cameras, it's something you may not have come across. So what you'll see is if you try to put some film in here and take photos, light is going to leak in through those degraded seals and then expose your film, ruining your photos. The red and the blue colors are from the light hitting either the front or the back of the film. While the effect could look pretty in certain situations, we want a consistent camera. So first thing, of course, is to gather the supplies. We have an adhesive remover, we have some wooden toothpicks, some Q-tips with paper sticks, and some water. And then, of course, we'll need the light seals themselves. This one's from uscamera.com. They make some light seal kits for specific cameras, but you can pick up a generic kit and just cut the seals to fit. So we'll place the camera down on a clean working surface. So then we're going to take a bottle cap and put a little bit of the solvent in the bottle cap so we can pull from there. We don't want to be spraying the solvent directly onto the camera. So here we're going to go ahead and take some of this solvent and we're going to put it on this degraded seal and start scraping away with these toothpicks. The idea here is to just take your time. Use small amounts of solvent to loosen up the old seals and then scrape them away with soft tools like wood toothpicks or paper cotton swabs. be careful to not allow solvent or fibers to make their way into the internal mechanism of the camera. A little tip, you can use 2 toothpicks to pick up a drop of solvent and bring it over to where you're going to use it in the camera. Work your way around to all the areas where the old seals were. Make sure the surfaces are very clean so that way the new seals will be able to adhere without falling off. But like I said, take your time and be detail oriented. And be very careful around the mirror bumper because the focusing screen is right there, and if you scratch that, you're not going to be able to fix it. Make sure once you've gotten all the seals cleaned off, you go back through with some water to clean up that solvent. We don't want any of that left behind when we put the new seals on.
Alright, that took a lot longer than I wanted it to, but it's better to spend some more time getting it completely clean than to rush it and then have a bad install. But next step is to apply the seals themselves. And that's part of the reason why I have the water here. You know how when you're trying to apply a sticker and you put it in the wrong place and now you got to peel it up and you ruin it and it turns into a problem? The water helps slow down the adhesive process. So what we'll do is we'll expose the adhesive, put a little bit of water on it, and then put it in place. The water will allow us to slide it, and then when the water dries, and then it should stick in the right place.
You'll want to start with the wider, easier to access ones to kind of get your technique down. But once you've got it, all you got to do is go around the rest of the camera, put in seals in the places where seals used to be, and you'll have a nice light sealed box ready to go to take pictures. Here's a freshly applied mirror bumper that'll catch the mirror, keep it from damaging, but most importantly, keep the light away from the film. Now that we have a nice light sealed box to work with, let's take a look at the lens. Mechanically, the lens works perfectly, but you may have noticed there's this kind of yellow sheen to the lens. This is not a coating. This is actually radioactive elements in the lens itself that were used by manufacturers at the time. And this will actually change the color of your photos to be a little bit warmer. You can fix this in post, but we're going to do what we can to try to fix this as much as possible in the lens itself. What I have here is a cheap UV light that I picked up from Amazon. Now I don't know the mechanism exactly, but apparently UV light can actually de-yellow some of these lenses. Some people have had luck just leaving it out in the sun, but the heat from the sun can actually cause more problems with the lens because of the old oils and things like that inside. So all I did was take some aluminum foil, put the lens inside, and then put the light on top of the lens in the aluminum foil. That way I can capture as much light as I can within the lens, and hopefully it bounces back and gets both sides of the lens. I left it there for a few days, and then when I pulled the lens out, it actually looked considerably clearer than it was when it went in. It's not 100% clear, but a lot less yellow than it was. So we'll go ahead and screw the lens back on, and then there's one last bit of housekeeping before the camera's ready to go. While this is a completely manual camera and there's no battery needed to actually use the camera, the light meter does use a battery. In a lot of vintage cameras, it takes a mercury battery, which is near impossible to find nowadays. One unusual thing here is that this is actually a 6-volt alkaline battery, which while unusual is still readily available. So now we're ready to go and load this thing up with film. So we'll take the Fujifilm camera with the Fujifilm lens and put some Kodak Ultramax inside. In all seriousness, Ultramax is still a great film. It's a consumer level film with an ISO of 400, so it works decently good indoors and outdoors, kind of an all-around film. The grain is going to be a lot more prominent in here than maybe some of the more professional films, but if you're going for that retro film look, this is a great choice. So we'll just go ahead and pop open the back of the camera, pop that canister into the camera, we'll pull the film across and make sure it's getting picked up, and we're also going to make sure that the sprockets are going into the holes properly. Once we're sure it's picking up the film properly and it's feeding through, we'll go ahead and close up the back, and then we'll have to run a couple of more shots just to make sure that we're not shooting on exposed film. Be sure that that rewind knob is turning with the advance lever, because if it's not, that means your film is not loaded properly. Last, make sure you set your ISO or ASA to the proper level for the film that you're using.
So there, now we've got it together. That was a little bit more involved than I was expecting, but it really showcases what a camera really is. And what that really is a box with a way of controlling the light going into it, meaning everything else needs to be light proof. And that goes for every camera. Like this digital camera, it's a box controlling how much light goes into it. Your cell phone has a little tiny box inside
that controls how much light goes into it. But unlike the digital cameras, if I want to test to see if the light seal operation here was successful, I'm going to have to load some film, take some pictures, and then have them developed. So now I just need to find a good retro-looking subject to put on film. Wonder what I could use. Well, I guess we'll find out next time. But until then, never stop having fun.